After my wife was diagnosed with cancer, she not only refused to undergo treatment but also insisted on traveling to other places. I pleaded with her, but she handed me a thick farewell letter and told me not to say another word. With tears in her eyes, she said, "I'm already like this. What's the point of treatment?" The letter was filled with my love and longing. "Remember to open it after I'm gone. When you miss me, take it out and read it. It will be as if I'm by your side." The letter in my hand felt heavy, pressing down on my chest so I could barely breathe. I made up my mind. After she passed away, I would take that letter with me, until one day I accidentally discovered two things. First, the 58-page farewell letter was actually addressed to my cousin. Second, the medical center had mixed up the test samples. It was actually me who had cancer. That day was unusually cold, the chill penetrating to the bone. Seeing the nearly 30,000-word confession, I couldn't help but smile bitterly. Since that was the case, I decided not to reveal the truth and let them have their wish. I arranged a dinner gathering. Serafina Davenport's favorite Hueyang cuisine restaurant. She seemed uninterested, but when I casually mentioned that my cousin would also be there, her eyes lit up. After spending 2 hours in the dressing room, she put on that pure white dress and spun around in front of me. "Does it look good?" I smiled and said, "It looks beautiful." That dress left a deep impression on me. Whenever my cousin attended a gathering, no matter how cold the winter was, Serafina would insist on wearing that dress. Once when we went out, I suggested she wear that white dress, thinking it would go well with pear blossoms. She looked at me and said, "It's only May. Wearing a dress is inappropriate." At the dinner table, Serafina enthusiastically poured water and served food to my cousin, behaving very warmly. Occasionally, her body would brush against my cousin's arm, and the two would pause for a moment before exchanging a knowing smile. Serafina didn't know that my cousin had actually been reluctant to come at first. Even when I told him that Serafina had cancer and that everyone should gather together before she passed away, he didn't take it seriously, just irritably saying, "Let her die. She's not my wife. I don't have time." The only reason he agreed to attend the gathering was because I mentioned buying him a first-class plane ticket and promised to pay him 5,000 yuan a day for lost wages. At that moment, the two of them looked at each other, showing no signs of reluctance. Lost in thought, my cousin picked up the whiskey glass, poured me a glass of white wine, pushed it toward me and said, "Aldrich Whitaker, I'll drink to you." After saying that, he raised the small glass in front of him and drank it in one gulp. He unconsciously furrowed his brows. Seeing that I didn't move, Serafina picked up the glass and brought it to my lips, saying, "My cousin is toasting you. Drink quickly." Her eyes carried a hint of urgency and warning. The old me would have immediately raised the glass and drunk it, but today I didn't want to drink. I gently pressed Serafina's hand and said calmly, "I took some antibiotics." The first refusal caught everyone at the table off guard. They thought I had never refused Serafina's requests before. My cousin said sarcastically, "Oh, you've become a big engineer, how impressive. You dare not even drink the wine I offered you. You probably don't know that this child used to love the food I ate. Even the chicken drumsticks I couldn't finish and threw into the dog bowl. He would fight with the dog to eat." Everyone looked surprised, and he said this with a particularly smug expression. "Really, Aldrich, I remember your family was well off when you were a child. How could you fight with a dog over chicken drumsticks? Haha, that's so funny. Was it the dog who took more, or did you take more?" My face grew slightly warm. I did indeed have an experience of stealing meat from the dog bowl, although my family's circumstances were decent. My mother was always busy taking care of her parents' family. In my childhood memories, my mother was always like a busy squirrel, constantly moving things around the house. Before biting into that chicken leg, I had been eating potato threads with porridge for 2 months straight. Recalling those difficult days, I felt a pang of sadness. But I tried to look calm, glancing around to hide my feelings. But I saw Serafina's lips curl into a mocking smile, her eyes fixed on my cousin. My heart felt like it was being crushed by a wet cotton ball, making it hard to breathe. I retorted I was just a kid back then. Look at my cousin. He's already in middle school, yet he was caught peeking at a girl using the restroom and was dragged out by my uncle, who made him take off his pants and beat him in the courtyard. Before I could finish, a slap landed hard on my face. Serafina's eyes turned red as she shouted at me. "You can't talk about my cousin like that. My cousin isn't that kind of person. You must have been the one who secretly watched the girl use the restroom and then blamed it on my cousin. You're such a disappointment. You're such a lowlife. Stop it, please leave. I don't want to see you anymore." Suddenly, another slap knocked me off balance. My cheek burned, but my heart felt as cold as ice. I forgot. Serafina doesn't allow me to speak ill of my cousin. Once, I just asked my cousin if she was a little overweight, and she got upset, punishing me by making me kneel on the balcony all night. The people at the table looked at me with pity or mockery. I couldn't stay any longer. Under my cousin's taunting gaze, I fled the restaurant like a drowned rat. When I reached the parking lot, Serafina caught up with me from behind and called out to me. This surprised me. She ran quickly and was still panting when she stood in front of me. I reached out to help her calm down, but she suddenly slapped my hand away. "You must go back and apologize to your cousin." "I won't apologize and I won't go home." My hand hung in the air, feeling extremely awkward. I looked at her calmly and said, "Do as you wish. However, if you don't answer now once I'm gone, I wonder if you'll still be able to maintain this family." On the passenger seat of my car was the letter Serafina had written. The handwriting was neat, each stroke written with care. The inner pages were damp with tears, and every word was filled with sadness. I saw the recipient's name again today. Yesterday, I saw news online about Serafina's condition. It said that there was a new drug for her B-cell lymphoma. The price for the drug starts at 1.2 million yuan per dose. Without hesitation, I retrieved the property deed and rushed to the real estate agency. On the way, I thought to myself, if selling the house isn't enough, I'll sell my car. If that's still not enough, I'll sell a kidney. In any case, I'll do everything in my power to save Serafina. What I didn't expect was that the property deed I had always clung to as my hope was told by the agent to be fake. After rushing to the housing bureau to inquire, the staff coldly informed me that the house had been transferred to a man 10 years ago. My cousin is Thaddeus Sinclair. I remember when Serafina and I got married. She mentioned needing a sense of security. To fulfill her need, I transferred the deed to this prime property to her. I wanted to prepare for the future. If something happened to me, she could sell the house and start over somewhere else. I never imagined she would secretly give away our only property to Thaddeus. What surprised me even more was that the health checkup center called to tell me that it was actually me who had cancer. In that moment, all the resentment in my heart vanished. I was so overwhelmed that I almost knelt down. Over the past 2 months, I've been praying before the Buddha, hoping that Serafina would recover. As long as she can get better, I'm willing to endure anything. It must be that heaven heard my wish and chose to grant it. Serafina was a delicate girl, and to spare her any distress, I had to let go of all my attachments. I visited the cemetery. Seeing that small black hole, I couldn't help but feel a pang of sadness. To leave no regrets, I opened the farewell letter Serafina had given me. Upon opening it, I was speechless. There was only one sentence written for me: "Give this letter to Thaddeus." The remaining 58 pages detailed how they met and fell in love, as well as their secret relationship and the exhilarating feelings they shared after we were married. Among the memories, one sentence struck me particularly hard. "In the years I spent married to Aldrich, I was never happy. He doesn't compare to you in any way. All my efforts over the years have been completely disregarded, leaving me feeling utterly defeated. After some reflection, I felt I had almost given up. and there was little left to hold on to. Since Serafina loves her cousin so much, I'll let her have him. I also want to see if she can win Thaddeus's heart back without me. After all, they've been together for 3 years and Serafina has gone through so much. But Thaddeus has never mentioned wanting to marry her. The next morning, when Serafina returned, there were many obvious kiss marks on her neck. The red mark stood out vividly against her white dress. When she took off her dress and walked into the bathroom, I noticed her lace underwear was on backwards. After washing up, she sat at the dining table drinking porridge. Her attention was completely on her phone, and she didn't even notice the porridge spilling onto her clothes. Seeing the 2 dark circles under her eyes, I couldn't help but say, "Don't go out all night again. Your body can't handle it." Serafina gave me a disdainful look. "I'm almost dead. Don't I even have a little freedom? You're always telling me what to do. Am I your personal property?" I wisely kept my mouth shut over the years. Every time she went out to a party, I drove her there and back. Once, because of traffic, I was 10 minutes late, and she told me to wait for her in the parking lot from now on. She felt embarrassed having to wait by the roadside in her nice clothes. From then on, she enjoyed her steak in the restaurant while I ate instant noodles in the car. I did this for 10 years, just so she could come home comfortably. But in her eyes, my efforts had turned into control, making her feel restricted. Over the next few days, Serafina's mood changed drastically, becoming more energetic. She dressed up every day, leaving early and returning late. Even when she came home, she would immediately take a shower, spending hours in the bathroom, and then go straight to the guest room. Eventually, she was hardly ever seen. Her absence was actually quite convenient for me. I never expected to run into her at the hospital. At the entrance to the urology department, she was curled up in Thaddeus's arms, looking very happy. Our eyes met, and Serafina suddenly looked angry. "Are you following me?" I held up the medicine bag in my hand and said seriously, "It's just a coincidence." Serafina looked at the medicine bag and noticed it was stuffed full. A hint of curiosity flashed in her eyes. Thaddeus gently shushed her. Serafina quickly turned her head and held Thaddeus's hand, asking, "What's wrong?" "Cousin, does it hurt again?" I didn't want to deal with them and was about to leave when Serafina called out to me. "Cousin isn't feeling well and has to stay in the hospital. The food outside isn't very healthy, so you'll have to bring him meals for the next few days. Remember, your cousin doesn't eat ginger, lamb, or celery. The food should be light." She wasn't the careless person who couldn't even remember my birthday after all. Before I could say anything, they walked away with their heads held high. After leaving the hospital, I randomly found a restaurant and ordered some food. It's not that I want to be a sycophant, but this period is almost over, and I don't want to cause any unnecessary trouble. 5 days later, Serafina finally returned home. She noticed that I didn't rush over to help her take off her shoes or pour her water like I used to. She felt a bit awkward and didn't know what to say. The food was quite delicious. She kept her eyes on the TV and nodded. Serafina told me she wanted to travel the world while she was still able to. She also asked me to give her all the savings in the house. I felt a bit torn. There was only 1.8 million left in the house, which was meant to be saved for Serafina so she could live comfortably after I was gone. Since graduating from university, Serafina had never worked a day in her life. This was her last resort after I was gone. Seeing that I didn't say anything, Serafina was very upset. She said to me, "Aldrich, I've never had a single good day with you. I can't keep going like this anymore. Why won't you just give me that money? I have no idea why I ever married you. You're nothing compared to my cousin." I felt really upset. After all these years of marriage, Serafina has never washed a single dish or mopped the floor once. Even her underwear is washed by me. Whatever she asks me to do, I always try my best to do it, and I've never refused her. How did I become the one she says is always unhappy? I took the savings book from the bedroom and handed it to her. "Here, take it. Use it however you like. Anyway, this money is for you. You can spend it however you want." Her expression softened slightly. She rushed to me and kissed me. "I'll be back in 3 months. Wait for me at home. I'll bring you a gift." I silently wiped my face. 3 months? I don't know if I'll even be here by then. Will you feel a little sad for me then? Serafina's world tour was truly amazing. Thaddeus accompanied her on a boat ride in Venice and watched the sea on the pink sands of the Bahamas. They also visited a church in Jerusalem to experience a traditional wedding. Everywhere they went, Serafina loved to post a grid of photos on her social media. In the photos, Serafina wore a bikini, making funny faces at Thaddeus. She was also lying on the luxurious bed in a silk nightgown, showcasing her alluring curves. The bedside was a bit messy, with some toys visible. She didn't seem to care at all, not even bothering to hide them from me. Even in her 40s, she still knew how to have fun. Looking back on the past decade of our marriage, she always dictated the time and positions. If it went over 10 minutes, she'd grow impatient and tell me to go to the bathroom to handle it myself. Once, I mustered the courage to suggest trying something different, but she slapped me and called me abnormal. I always thought she wasn't interested in that sort of thing and never pressured her. My gaze lingered on that photo for a long time. It turns out her passion had always been with someone else. 3 months later, I received a WeChat message. "Come pick me up at 8 tomorrow night. I brought you a gift." She sent a photo. In the picture were several refrigerator magnets clearly bought from Yuwu. In the background, Thaddeus was wearing a brand new Armani suit, looking tall and imposing. I actually had one too, but it was the domestic version. $750. Plus 2 pairs of socks. This was the gift Serafina gave me on our 10th wedding anniversary. I struggled to drop the phone and didn't reply. My whole body ached, and I had no strength left to type. The disinfectant smell in the hospital was overpowering, stinging my eyes until they watered involuntarily. On the other end of the call, Serafina's grip on the phone grew tighter. The little red dot on the WeChat icon hadn't appeared yet, making her feel anxious. What a frustrating Aldrich. Not only had he not called once in the past 3 months, but now he wasn't even replying to messages. How dare he, once she got home, if Aldrich didn't kneel down and apologize in front of her? She would never forgive him. Thinking about getting back home to deal with Aldrich, Serafina's steps grew faster. As soon as she stepped off the plane, she hurriedly dragged her luggage toward the exit. Suddenly, she felt a wave of dizziness. In the split second before losing consciousness, she felt panicked. Am I going to die? Why is the last person I think of before dying Aldrich? When she woke up, a nurse walked over with a smile on her face. "Ma'am, congratulations. You're pregnant." "What did you say, pregnant? How is that possible? I fainted because of cancer, didn't I?" The nurse was surprised. "What cancer are you talking about? Your physical condition is excellent, and the baby in your womb is healthy." She almost felt like she was dreaming. How could she be pregnant, back when she was with Thaddeus? Every time she got pregnant, she would miscarry for no apparent reason. After going through this over a dozen times, her uterus had been completely damaged. Because she couldn't have children, Thaddeus had painfully chosen to part ways with her. At 40 years old, wanting to conceive a healthy baby was incredibly difficult. And what was this cancer all about? She looked at the test results, which clearly stated she had cancer. How could this have happened? Serafina was confused and hurriedly reached for her phone to call Aldrich. Just then, Thaddeus rushed into the ward. Seeing him, she immediately forgot about the call. Thinking about the baby in her womb, she smiled. She thought to herself that Thaddeus would be so happy to hear the news. "Thaddeus, I have some good news to tell you," but before she could finish, she was slapped across the face. "What the hell are you and Aldrich lying to me? You said you'd leave everything to me after you died. Now you're fine. Are you kidding me?" Serafina was a bit dazed. Before she could process what was happening, she was hit several more times. "I've wasted so much time with you, all for your inheritance, and now you're not even sick. The pain was unbearable, and Serafina tasted salt in her mouth. Gritting her teeth, she said to Thaddeus, "Cousin, don't worry. I'll call Aldrich right away to find out what's going on. You can rest assured about the inheritance. I would never lie to you. Aldrich always listens to me. Even if I'm not involved, as long as I say the word, he'll definitely give me the money." Thaddeus finally stopped and said, "Hurry up and call." Her hands were trembling as she dialed Aldrich's number. The phone rang repeatedly, but no one answered. Thaddeus raised his fist high, causing her to tremble uncontrollably. "Hello," finally. The phone connected. Serafina was almost on the verge of breaking down, urgently asking, "Aldrich, where are you?" After a brief silence, Aldrich's voice sounded exhausted. "Fifth floor of the city hospital, oncology department." When Serafina and Thaddeus entered the ward, both of them froze. Seeing the man on the bed with a blank expression and pale face, Serafina accidentally dropped the fridge magnet she was holding onto the ground. "Aldrich, why are you lying here?" Her tone was filled with confusion. I rolled my eyes inwardly. They say women in love are a bit foolish, and it seems they're right. I'm not lying in this hospital bed to get treated. Am I here to eat hot pot? I took my test results from the bedside table and handed them to Serafina, whispering, "I have some good news for you. The health checkup center made a mistake. It's not you who has cancer, it's me. You'll have at most another month, and then you can be with Thaddeus forever." Strangely, Serafina didn't react the way I expected. She kept flipping through the pile of test results. When she realized I was telling the truth, she couldn't help but shake her head, her voice growing sad. "Husband, you're lying to me, right? You're just jealous that I went on a trip with my cousin. So you deliberately set me up at the hospital, right? I don't believe it. I don't believe it at all. How could you die? You absolutely can't die." I didn't say anything, just looked at her with a helpless expression. How could she have gotten involved with the hospital? It was truly unforeseeable. She had overestimated herself. In the face of life and death, everything else seemed trivial. At that moment, nothing else mattered, not even her, whom I had once loved deeply. Seeing my indifferent expression, Serafina finally realized I wasn't lying to her. Coming to her senses, she rushed forward and hugged me tightly, crying, "Husband, you can't die. I don't want to lose you. We have to get treatment. No matter the cost, even if we have to spend every last penny, I'll make sure you recover." The person before me was tearful, but my heart felt empty. "Serafina, we've lost everything. The last of our money was spent on your affairs with Thaddeus." Hearing Serafina's words, Thaddeus suddenly grabbed Serafina's arm, his expression agitated. "What are you talking about? He's dead." "That's perfect, he's dead, and you can inherit all his inheritance. You have to give me all the inheritance. You promised me." I furrowed my brows. "Inheritance? Serafina, what did you tell your cousin? Didn't you tell him that the last of our family's money was spent on your global trip? Now we can't even come up with $10,000. Where's the inheritance coming from?" Perhaps my expression was too sincere, because Thaddeus immediately believed what I said. His facial muscles tensed, revealing an angry yet unwilling expression. "You're such a liar. I always knew you were deceiving me." Then he gave her a hard shove. Serafina was knocked to the ground, and the swollen bruises on her face were the result. She scrambled toward me, instinctively seeking my help. "Husband, help me, save me." She looked up and met my cold gaze. I smiled faintly, drawing her attention back to me. "Dear, I can't help you either." Seeing that I didn't react, Thaddeus grew even more arrogant and began kicking and punching Serafina on the ground. I closed my eyes and thought back to 5 years ago, when Serafina and I went out for barbecue at night. There were a few drunk people staring at Serafina by the roadside. I wanted to take her away quickly to ensure her safety, but she pointed at my nose and bluntly called me a useless person. "You can't even protect your own wife. What kind of man are you?" After scolding me, She picked up a wine bottle and went to apologize to the young man. That day, I was stabbed twice and was in a terrible state. Serafina casually remarked, "You're barely a man." Over the years, her temper hasn't changed. She still loves to cause trouble. Every time, I'm the one left to clean up her mess. Back then, as long as she called me husband and asked me to save her, I would risk my life to help her. Seeing herself helpless, Serafina crawled to Thaddeus's feet and begged, "Cousin, don't hit me." She gently rubbed her stomach and said, "I'm pregnant. Our child is here." The nurse said the baby was healthy and would be born safely. She was excited, her face flushed slightly, her eyes filled with anticipation. "Cousin, are you happy?" But to her disappointment, Thaddeus didn't show any joy upon hearing the news. Instead, he sneered, knelt down, and slapped Serafina's face while saying, "Child, do you think I care about your child? To be honest, the ones you aborted back then were all arranged by me. To save money, I bought medicine meant for animals. I never thought you were so lucky to survive after taking so much animal medicine. We were just playing around. Only an old-fashioned guy like Aldrich would fall for an ignorant woman like you." Thaddeus' words felt like a sudden blow to Serafina's heart. She was completely speechless. Her whole body trembled uncontrollably. She never imagined the truth could be so shocking. After breaking up with Thaddeus, she found Aldrich, who had been pursuing her for years. She told him directly that she didn't want children, and if Aldrich didn't mind, she would consider giving him a chance. To her surprise, Aldrich, whose family had been all boys for 5 generations, didn't hesitate and happily said he didn't mind at all. He married her despite the pressure, and after marriage, he never let her face any criticism from his parents over the issue. Thaddeus was right. Only Aldrich truly loved her. She glanced unintentionally at the person on the hospital bed. He had his eyes closed and didn't notice her at all. A part of her heart felt empty, and no amount of tears could fill the void. She couldn't believe it, shaking her head in despair. Aldrich, it seemed like he really didn't care about her anymore. No, he must still love her. He was just a little upset now. All she needed to do was lower herself a bit and coax him, and he would change his mind. Hadn't it always been like this over the years? Ever since Serafina came home, my phone had been ringing nonstop. She called first to ask why there was no silver ear fungus and pear in the fridge. After hearing my silent laughter, she realized and hurriedly apologized. "I'm sorry, honey. I forgot you were in the hospital." I immediately prepared dinner and brought it over. Less than 15 minutes after hanging up, she called again to ask how to use the gas stove and where the market was. Even though I kept telling her I didn't need her to cook, she insisted on fulfilling her duties as a wife. I found it amusing that she only thought of me as her wife after being hurt by Thaddeus. How much of her heart is truly sincere in the hospital room. Serafina brought me 3 plates of food that looked strange. She said carefully, "Husband, please try it first. If it's not good, I can make something else." This was the first time I had ever heard her speak to me in such a tone. I took out my phone to order takeout, thinking to myself, just throw it away. It's too uncomfortable to look at. Serafina's eyes immediately turned red, tears welling up in her eyes. She reached out to start cleaning up. I turned my head away, pretending not to see the large blister on her hand from the hot oil. After returning to the trash room, Serafina stood by my bedside, head down. After a long while, she seemed to gather her courage and said, "Husband, I won't come tomorrow. I have surgery tomorrow." This was somewhat unexpected. Serafina had always loved children and was deeply saddened by her inability to conceive. Even when she saw strangers' children on the street, she would gaze at them with envy and try to make them smile. I had always believed that even if Thaddeus didn't acknowledge the child, she would choose to give birth to him. So I couldn't help but ask her, "Why did you have a miscarriage? You've always wanted a child, haven't you?" Her eyes grew moist. "He wasn't meant to be here." I thought back to Thaddeus's attitude towards Serafina that day, and I understood. "It's up to you, over the next few days." Serafina didn't show up, but she kept sending me messages, asking how I was doing every hour. I didn't respond to any of them. In recent days, the physical pain has grown increasingly intense, feeling like every bone and muscle in my body is being sliced by a knife. I couldn't sleep well at night and always felt drowsy. It took a lot of effort to stay awake. I knew that day was coming, but I wasn't afraid because in this situation, death was a form of liberation. 5 days later, my heart stopped beating for the first time. After 2 rounds of defibrillation, I miraculously regained consciousness. I underwent a tracheostomy and began using a ventilator. Most of the time, I was in a coma, just waiting for my last breath. The medical staff contacted Serafina according to my request and asked her to come sign the Do Not Resuscitate agreement. At that moment, I regained consciousness briefly. I felt her lying on top of me, crying bitterly. Her voice betrayed an indescribable mix of despair and reluctance. "Husband, I'm here. Can you open your eyes and look at me? Please look at me, look at me. Don't do this. If you're gone, what will I do? The child is already gone. Let's live a happy life together from now on. Okay, wake up. Please wake up." No matter how much she cried and struggled, the only sounds around were the cold beeps of the electrocardiogram monitor. Serafina desperately shouted at the nurse, "Why aren't you doing anything? Save him. Use the best medicine to treat him. I'll pay any amount of money. You must save him. You can't even cure such a minor illness. Are you useless?" The attending nurse immediately grew annoyed and spoke bluntly. "A minor illness? Your husband has cancer. You've been so sick lately, and you haven't visited him once in 3 months. I heard you've been traveling abroad with your lover and spent all your money. Do you know that your husband has been surviving on the cheapest painkillers for the past 3 months because he had no money? If you had sought treatment earlier, your husband wouldn't have ended up in this condition. As his wife, what have you been doing? Have you really been paying attention to his condition?" Serafina fell silent. After an unknown amount of time, I heard her emit heart-wrenching cries. The sound was very loud. I wanted to tell her that no matter how much she cried, I couldn't come back to life. That farewell letter took away my will to live. From that moment on, I felt there was no hope left for me. My consciousness grew fuzzy, and I fell into a coma once again. When I woke up the second time, Serafina wasn't there. She struggled to open her eyes, and the only person beside her was that talkative nurse. Seeing me awake, she rushed over excitedly. "Wow, you're awake. That's great, we saved you again." I tried to smile bitterly but couldn't manage it. I glanced at the bedside table and remembered that there had been paper and a pen there earlier. Seeing me looking around, the nurse in charge of the bedside and said, "Don't bother looking for them. Your wife can't come." She didn't wait for me to respond before continuing. "Your wife is in the surgical ward downstairs. I heard she went to your cousin to sell your house to pay for your medical expenses. But your cousin refused and broke 5 of her ribs. What's the point of selling the house now? Why didn't you do this sooner? But your family is pretty strange. Why is your cousin's name on the house deed?" The nurse kept talking. I couldn't understand a word she was saying. At this point, what is Serafina still holding on to? Everything has lost its meaning. When we got married, I gave her 380,000 yuan as a dowry, but she transferred the money to Thaddeus's account the very next day. After receiving the money, Thaddeus immediately left here and settled in Beijing. Someone like that would never give up something they've already obtained so easily. The nurse noticed that I was staring at the paper and pen on the bedside table. She brought them over and asked, "Is there anything you want to say?" I blinked to indicate my agreement. Half an hour later, I finally mustered the courage to write my final words on the paper. "I do not wish to undergo any further life-saving measures." 5 hours later, my heartbeat became a straight line. My soul slowly detached from my body, and I floated in the air. To my surprise, Serafina, who should have been in the hospital, was kneeling lifelessly before my body. Her eyes were vacant, as if she were unconsciously bowing her head toward my body. She bowed once and said, "Husband, I'm sorry." The skin on her forehead was rotting, and the wound looked terrible. I couldn't bear to watch, so I turned away. A few former friends entered the room, helped her to her feet, and said that Aldrich needed to be cremated. She nodded blankly, stepped aside, and obediently followed her friends to the crematorium. Seeing her like this, her friends sighed in relief. It seemed she had finally accepted the truth and no longer insisted on dying with me. No one expected that just as the staff was preparing to push my body into the cremation furnace, Serafina, who had always seemed so numb, suddenly displayed immense strength. She pushed aside her friends, leaped onto the stretcher and clung tightly to my body. "Husband, don't worry, I'll be with you. Over there, we'll still be husband and wife." Everyone around her was terrified and rushed forward to pull her away. No one knew how a woman weighing only 90 pounds and severely injured could muster such strength. She held onto me tightly, her hands clenched so hard they turned white. Those around us were deeply moved and began to shed tears quietly, but I could only think of laughing. "You said that if we went to the afterlife, we could still be husband and wife, but I dare not be your wife anymore." A few friends rolled up their sleeves and struggled to pull Serafina away, but they couldn't pry her loose. Finally, one of them came up with a good idea. She pulled a letter out of Serafina's bag. It was the farewell letter I had written for Serafina before I fell ill. Looking at the letter, Serafina's once lifeless eyes finally flickered with a glimmer of hope. The friend urgently said, "Serafina, look at this. You might not have seen this before. Aldrich valued you as much as his own life, and we've all seen that over the years. In his final moments, he must have wanted you not to be sad and to live on. If you leave like this, will Aldrich in heaven be at peace? He loved you for so many years. Don't you want to know the last words he said to you before he died?" Hearing these words, a glimmer of light flashed in Serafina's eyes. They were right. Aldrich had always loved her so much, cherishing her like a precious treasure all these years. In his final moments, he must have been filled with love and longing for her. He wasn't dead yet. He hadn't had the chance to express his love to her. Hadn't left her yet. Serafina froze, lost in her thoughts. Several friends seized the moment and pulled her down. I was pushed into the cremation chamber. About 30 minutes later, the body had turned into a pile of white bones. Throughout the entire process, Serafina held the letter tightly, keeping it close to her heart. It was like her last shred of hope. She protected the letter carefully, as if it were a precious treasure. It was almost laughable. After the ashes were placed in the cemetery, Serafina saw her friends off. She sat alone by the grave, her hands trembling slightly as she carefully tore open the envelope of the letter, placed the torn piece of paper into her pocket, and began to read it. "Throughout my life, I have experienced both suffering and joy, and I have never regretted anything. Only marrying you has left me feeling irreparably broken. If there is a next life, I absolutely do not want to meet you again." Serafina's eyes widened in shock, almost unable to hold the paper. She couldn't believe that the person who had accompanied her for so many years had said those words to her before leaving, that she hoped they would never meet again in the next life. Her heart ached as if it were being torn apart, feeling like she had been suddenly thrown from a great height into the depths of the ocean. Suffocating and unable to breathe, she turned toward the tombstone in a daze, reaching out to touch her own photo. Her voice trembled violently. "Husband, I was wrong. I was truly wrong. You can't leave me. I only realize now that you were the only one who truly loved me in this world. I regret it so much. This is terrible. It's all my fault." No matter how she shouted, 10 weeks passed and the surroundings remained silent. The only response was the wind from the cemetery, which blew out the 3 incense sticks before the tombstone. She saw black and collapsed. After fainting, the breeze blew away the paper Serafina had been holding loosely in her hand. Now, the only thing Aldrich had left for Serafina was gone with the wind. A month later, a shocking news story spread throughout City C. It was said that a woman, due to emotional issues, had caused a man's death. After the man passed away, her lover kicked her out of the house, leaving her to wander the streets. Later, for some unknown reason, the lover let her back inside. Unbeknownst to anyone, she didn't go in for intimacy. She went in to commit a horrific act. She stabbed her lover to death with a knife, then poured the gasoline she had prepared earlier and set the house ablaze, ultimately perishing in the fire herself. According to neighbors, she was completely engulfed in flames, writhing in pain on the ground, and kept shouting Aldrich's name, "Aldrich, I'm coming." Everyone was too shocked to speak, marveling at how devoted she was. I overheard the neighbors gossiping and couldn't help but roll my eyes. Devoted. Whoever believes that will be the one to suffer. The wind blows, slowly carrying me away to embrace the next beginning.